Welcome to the Deeper Thinking podcast. Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every decision you've ever made, every stand you've taken, every risk, every act of defiance was never really yours. That your choices were simply the inevitable outcome of physics, biology, and prior events. That this realization would challenge everything that gives identity meaning, potentially dulling the pride felt in moments of courage or causing hesitation in claiming personal freedom. The concept of free will has shaped human values, morality, and purpose for centuries. The longing for freedom is deeply embedded in human nature, an undeniable force that has driven revolutions, inspired movements, and defined personal aspirations. If determinism were accepted without exception, the foundations of accountability, meaning, and moral responsibility would be profoundly altered. If all actions are predetermined, responsibility ceases to exist in any meaningful way. No individual would be more accountable for their actions than a stone rolling down a hill. Praise and blame would lose their significance. Every deed reduced to an inevitable consequence of prior events. The absence of agency would not only reshape ethics, but would extend into all aspects of human experience. The way achievements are measured, the way beauty is judged, the way meaning is assigned to creative expression, each would lose something essential. Without free will, personal triumphs would become little more than the predictable unfolding of cause and effect. Without genuine choice, the concept of value itself begins to unravel. Meaning arises through consciousness, but only if choices are real. If everything unfolds solely due to physics and biology, then moral debates, artistic judgments, and personal victories become hollow. A world in which human experience is stripped of autonomy becomes nothing more than a sequence of predetermined events, each step dictated before it was ever taken. The implications for justice are unsettling. If individuals are merely the sum of mechanical processes rather than responsible agents, traditional notions of punishment and accountability become obsolete. In one sense, such an understanding could eliminate blame and hatred, since no one could have acted otherwise. But this same logic also erases admiration and pride. Criminals would not be resented, nor heroes celebrated. Every act of wrongdoing, every act of courage, every moment of decision-making would be nothing more than an inevitability, not an achievement or a failure. This perspective, however, does not align with lived experience. Even those who accept determinism as a theoretical framework still feel the undeniable weight of choice in their daily lives. Decisions are made after moments of hesitation, reflection, and struggle. Even if the trajectory of every action could be predicted with perfect knowledge, this does not erase the sense of agency that defines human existence. People may be bound by the forces that shape them, but they move forward as though they possess autonomy, because that is how existence is experienced. This is where the debate turns to compatibilism, the idea that determinism and free will are not necessarily incompatible. If free will is defined as the ability to act in accordance with internal motivations, then it exists alongside determinism without contradiction. However, if true freedom requires absolute independence from causation, then it remains an illusion. The world I grew up in framed freedom as the ultimate victory. The collapse of oppressive regimes, the release of political prisoners, the triumph of those who refused to accept injustice. These moments were held up as proof that resistance could shape history, that oppression could be challenged, that human beings were not powerless against systems greater than themselves. Looking back, the defining moments of my life were shaped by choice. Refusing to back down, not out of calculated risk, but because action came before thought. In the 1980s, I was suspended from school for hacking the school computer system and openly admitting to it. As far as I was concerned, this was something to be commended. I had exposed a vulnerability and provided a solution to fix it. I framed this as an argument in defense of my honesty and passion for technology, ultimately earning the respect of the faculty and even receiving an apology from the deputy principal. The cheek, the audacity. A year later, still just a child, I called the area manager to demand equal pay for younger workers, refusing to end the conversation until he agreed and succeeding. These actions never felt like rebellion. They felt entirely natural. ADHD is often misunderstood as distraction or restlessness, but in reality, it fuels an unrelenting need to engage, to act, to chase. Justice sensitivity, a trait documented in those with ADHD, particularly the inattentive type, transforms perceived injustices into something intolerable. Some can witness an unfair system and simply acknowledge it. For others, inaction is impossible. The weight of injustice presses down with such force that responding becomes a necessity rather than a choice. The signs had always been present. Certain wrongs felt unbearable, making it impossible to sit still when confronted with something that demanded change. Now that same force is visible in my son. At 8 years old, he took it upon himself to organise his classmates in a petition for a larger playground, gathering signatures and carefully composing a persuasive letter to the principal. His writing was clear, determined, unwavering in its conviction. He already understands himself well enough to recognise the intensity of his convictions. With an amusing degree of self-awareness, he knowingly refers to his own grandiosity, a word that seems almost comically ill-fitting for most 8-year-olds, but which in his case is wielded with both irony and sincerity. There is something familiar in that certainty, in the unshakable belief that fairness is not something to be wished for, but something to be pursued, demanded, insisted upon. For years, the question of choice lingered in my own mind. If the instinct to fight, to push, to challenge injustice was hardwired, the idea of bravery itself would need to be reconsidered. If the moments that defined my life had not been the result of deliberate calculations, but of an almost involuntary compulsion, the concept of personal freedom would take on a different meaning. Coming to terms with this has been unsettling. The realization that what once seemed like personal triumphs might instead be the result of neurochemistry. Integrity, once believed to be an inner strength, might instead be the byproduct of signals firing in a particular way, neurons misfiring or overreacting, creating a sensation so intense that action felt like the only possible response. Yet another understanding has emerged. Even if compulsion drives the initial spark, even if the wiring of the mind dictates the impulse, it does not erase what follows. There is still a moment of decision, to embrace that instinct or to suppress it. The forces that shape a person may be beyond their control, but within those forces, something real remains. Every decision carries weight, a tangible sense of direction that is not erased by the knowledge that biology and physics play their part. Freedom is not found in the absence of constraint. It is found in what is done within those constraints. Thank you for listening to the Deeper Thinking podcast, an audio essay read by Holly, our digital narrator. Until next time.